Hey everyone, welcome back to my favorite Norns scripts. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I've been meaning to do a beginner's guide to Norns, and I think this episode is the perfect opportunity since I'm going to be covering 10's Awake script. Awake is the first script I ever used, and it comes preloaded when you buy Norns. If you want to skip straight to the Awake explanation, you can jump to the chapter called Awake in the video description. When I think of Norns, I think of it as a platform more than a piece of gear. The box itself doesn't do a whole lot, the scripts are where the magic comes from. There are a few different types of Norns. There's the standard Norns, the Norns Shield, which requires some assembly, and Fates, which is a DIY version of the device. There are some differences between the standard Norns and the Shield/Fates versions. Mainly, the standard version has 1/4-inch inputs, and the others have 1/8-inch ones, as well as some differences in storage capacity and audio quality. Once you have the device, you can start downloading scripts, which are community-created musical programs. There are instruments like organ, effects like Otis, sample sequencing and mangling platforms like MLR and cheat codes, and MIDI sequencers like Loom and Fall. The best place to learn about the different scripts is the community forum Lines. Lines has threads for all of the different scripts, as well as threads on a multitude of other topics. When you found a script that you're interested in, you can install it using Maiden. Maiden is a browser-based tool for interfacing with your Norns. Before you can connect to Maiden, you need to make sure that your Norns is connected to Wi-Fi. To do this, you need to go into the System menu on Norns. From there, go to Wi-Fi, and then it will scan for available networks. Select yours and enter the password. If this worked, you should see the status listed as activated. Now that your Norns is on Wi-Fi, you can connect with Maiden. In your browser, enter norns.local in the address bar. If the page isn't found, you can also connect by entering the IP address of your Norns found on the Wi-Fi screen. Once you're on Maiden, there are two ways to install scripts. The first way is to navigate to the Project Manager tab on the left-hand side of the screen. This will by default display all of the scripts that you currently have installed. From here, you can update your scripts either individually with the update button to the right of the script, or all of them with the update all button at the top. You can also remove individual scripts from here with the remove button. To install new scripts, you need to select the available tab at the top of the window. This will now display all of the scripts that are available to download. If you've already installed the script, it will say installed as opposed to install. Some of the scripts will be tagged with keywords such as grid, MIDI, generative, or softcut, depending on what they do. Some will have a little book icon as well, which will link you to the script's documentation. Most of the time, the documentation is the same as what you'd find on the Lines page. Once you've found a script you want to download that hasn't been installed, you can do so by pressing the install button. Once the script has been installed, you'll need to restart your Norns to see it. This can be done by going to the System menu and selecting Restart. You may come across a script on Lines that doesn't appear in the Project Manager. If that happens, you can still install it from Maiden. In most cases, there will be installation instructions on the Lines page. For this example, I'm using Chaos Operator. It says here to install, type into Maiden this line. All you have to do is copy that line of text, return to Maiden, and paste it into the Matron tab and press Enter. If you don't see the Matron tab, you can toggle it on by pressing this icon. Just like with scripts installed from the Project Manager, you'll need to restart Norns for this change to take effect. Before I move on to Awake, I quickly want to cover Norns menus. There are 4 pages that you can navigate between using Encoder 1. The first page is the Mixer page. This shows the levels of your output, input, monitor, engine, softcut, and tape. These are the same levels that are controlled from the Levels page in the Parameters menu, but these are a bit more accessible. You can move between the pairs using buttons 2 and 3. And you can adjust the first one with Encoder 2 and the second one with Encoder 3. Output is volume of the main output including headphones and jacks. In is the volume of the external input to Norns. Mon is the monitor level, which is the volume of the input through to the output. ENG is the engine volume, Super Collider for example. Cut is the softcut volume, which is the sampler engine. And TP is the tape volume, which is the internal audio playback. The second page is the tape page. From here, you can record the audio coming out of whatever script you're using or record an external source. You can also play back any of the audio files you've recorded or have loaded onto Norns. To play an audio file, press button 3 to bring up the menu. You can use Encoder 2 to navigate between the different submenus. When you found the file you want, press button 3. To start playback, press button 3 again. And to stop, press it once more. To record a new audio file, press button 2 to shift the focus to record. Now pressing button 3 will bring up a menu for you to name the recording. Once you've named it, you can arm recording with button 3 and stop it by pressing it again. If you want to delete the recording you just did, you can return to Maiden. In the File Viewer tab, you'll see Audio. Expand that and then expand Tape. You'll see your recording in there. To delete that, select it and press the minus sign next to Files at the top. The next page is where you can access the script browser, the system menu, and put your Norns to sleep. Entering the Select submenu brings up the list of installed scripts, and once in there you can launch one by pressing button 2. The system menu has a bunch of stuff going on. Devices lets you set up external MIDI controllers, grid controllers, and ARC controllers. Wi-Fi is the menu I was in before. Mods lets you enable or disable any mods you've installed. Restart will restart Norns. Reset will clear all settings and restart the device. Update will check for any available updates if your Norns is connected to Wi-Fi. Password allows you to change the password for connecting to your Norns via SSH. And finally, selecting log will export a log file. The final page is the parameters page, which should be familiar to any returning viewers. This is where you can access additional controls for whatever script you're running at the moment. There are some additional submenus here though. The levels menu is the same as the first page we just went over, however there are 2 additional options. Monitor mode sets whether monitoring will be done in mono or stereo. Headphone gain sets the gain for the headphone output. The next submenu is the reverb menu. Norns has a built-in reverb engine. The first option will toggle it on or off. The next 4 controls are send levels for the various audio sources: engine, soft cut, monitor, and tape. Return level sets the volume of the audio coming back from the reverb. The rest of the controls are for the character of the reverb. There's a pre-delay time, a low frequency cutoff parameter, reverb times, and a high frequency damping control. The next menu is for Norns' built-in compressor. The first control will toggle it on or off. Mix is a dry-wet control. Ratio, threshold, attack, and release are standard compressor controls. And then the final 2 set the pre and post gain levels. The next submenu is the soft cut menu. This controls the levels of the different sources being sent to soft cut. Input ADC controls the level at which the external input is sent to the engine. Input engine is the level at which whatever engine the script is using is being sent to soft cut, and input tape is the same for the internal tape. The final submenu is the clock menu. From here you can set the clock source, either internal or from an external source, set the tempo if clocked internally, set the MIDI out device, and configure crow. Like I said in the intro, I'm going to be covering 10's Awake script. Awake is described as 2 looped sequences. The first sounds notes, the second transposes the notes of the first. Loop lengths can change, sequences can be morphed and randomized, configurable scales, and root notes. Basically, sequence 1 will create a pattern of notes, and then sequence 2 will transpose sequence 1 by that amount. Awake uses the polyperk engine to create sound, but it can also output the note values as MIDI. This is a simple but inspiring script and is a great introduction to what Norns is capable of. Awake has 4 pages of controls. I'm going to start with the step page. This page allows you to change the note output of each step. Encoder 2 moves between the different steps of the sequence, and encoder 3 will adjust the pitch. Pressing button 3 will morph the sequence. Holding button 1 will bring up the probability control. This determines the probability a note will sound in percent and can be adjusted with encoder 2. While continuing to hold button 1, pressing button 2 will clear the sequences, and button 3 will randomize them. Pressing button 2 will swap between the 2 sequences, and the controls are identical between the 2. The next page is the loop page. This lets you set the length of the sequence from 1 to 16 steps. Encoder 2 will adjust the length of the top sequence, and encoder 3 will adjust the bottom. Button 2 will return the playhead of both sequences to the start, and button 3 will jump to a random position. The third page is the sound page. This gives you control over the polyperk engine as well as the delay. Encoder 2 will adjust the top parameter, and encoder 3 will adjust the bottom one. Buttons 2 and 3 are used to flip between the different pages of controls. The first page has the filter cutoff and gain. The second page has the amount of pulse width modulation and release time of the amp envelope. The third page has the delay controls. FB is the feedback level, and rate sets the playback rate ranging from half speed to double speed. Pan will affect the pan of the engine, and delay pan will affect the pan of the delayed signal. The final page is the option page. This allows you to set the BPM and root note for the sequences. Encoder 2 will adjust the BPM, and encoder 3 will adjust the root note. Holding button 1 will bring up 2 additional controls. Now encoder 2 will change the playback speed of the sequence. The speed is calculated in divisions of the current BPM. Encoder 3 will change the scale. Most of the controls in the parameters page are available from the main window, but there are a few additional features. The first submenu is called Outs. From here, you can set the output to audio, just MIDI, audio and MIDI, or Crow. This allows you to use Awake as a sequencer for an external or software instrument. If you decide to use MIDI, you can set the MIDI out device below as well as the MIDI out channel. The next submenu is the step menu. This has all the same controls from the main screen, but you can also stop or start the sequence from here. The only other control in here that isn't present on the main screen is found in the half-second menu. This is the submenu for delay. The first parameter is a dry-wet control for the delay. The grid controls for this script are fairly straightforward. There's a dimly lit light that indicates the current step. You can press within a column to enter a note for that step, and the note's pitch will be relative to its location vertically. To remove a note, press the active note again. I hope this video was helpful to anyone new to the Norns world. I know it can be a bit overwhelming trying to get the device up and running. Like I said in the intro, Awake was the first script I used, and in my opinion, it's a great introduction to what Norns is capable of. It utilizes softcut, a sound generating engine, and has MIDI and Crow functionality. I think I covered the basics, but if I missed anything, leave a comment below, and I'll address any questions in a future video. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.